Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
I know you're getting really excited because it's almost Denim and Diamonds.
Oh, yes. Denim, Diamonds, and Stars now we call it.
Denim and Diamonds and Stars.
Yes. So, yeah, that's coming up on October 7th. So
Very
lots of
cool.
preparation
We're
on
going to be talking about that a lot.
Right.
But we got a big hour here for our viewers.
We
I
have
said two
several
doctors.
guests. Two doctors.
Which is pretty fabulous. We mentioned at the top of the show that Dr. Blair Braden is going to talk with us about aging and the autism brain and aging, which I'm excited to hear about. And then we have Dr. Christine Cohen is going to be with us to talk about her program and her book, Stand By Me, Empowering Bystanders to End Bullying in Schools. I'm very excited about this and having her here in the studio with us because, you know, we've both been through it in terms of either our kids going through something that was inappropriate at school that we were calling bullying or viewers writing into us saying, what do we do? And I always feel like there's so many things in the pot that fix that. Some of it is that we have to, give skills to our kids. But the other part is if the people who are standing around don't do something and don't know what to do.
And this is really the only program I know that provides, guidelines on how
very specific
students can be a part of anti-bullying.
Well, and even, on the other side of it now, there are times when we've talked to Jem about what do you do and what don't you do. And as a parent, I don't want him to get injured, right? Nobody wants to say to their kid, get in there and fight for the bullies, because we've seen that bad things have happened with that. But this book gives very clear guidelines that does not get the bystander injured, but takes the gas out of the bully. So love the fact that she's here.
Yeah.
And first up, though, we have some news. Shall we dive into the news?
There's another experimental drug for autism, and a larger trial of it is planned for 2019. The drug is called Suramin. And it's used for, it's a century-old medicine for sleeping sickness.
Yeah, we've actually talked about this before, but this is a big expanded trial that's happening in 2019. They're very specifically looking for people to be a part of the trial. They're going to be looking at how they've seen in their previous trials that taking this helps with social interaction, that it's easier for them to socially interact. They saw that some of the boys in the previous study spoke for the first time.
Right.
It's pretty exciting.
And some skills improve, such as tying shoelaces and learning new reading words.
Don't we love that?
Right.
So they are looking for boys that are on the autism spectrum. Of course, I don't have this one.
Ages 5 to 15.
5 to 15.
And it's UC, University of California at San Diego. It's Dr. Robert Navio. Navio, I think is the way you pronounce his name. And they said, treated boys began achieving new milestones, such as actively engaging in new language, social games like tag, trying new foods, and taking on new interest in music, dance, sports, and science.
Okay, so, and I found a different place here where it says they need to qualify, children must now be between the ages of 3 and 10 for the new study, born in California of a normal term pregnancy and not readmitted to the hospital in the first months after birth. In addition, the children must either have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, or they will take typically developing children that are not taking prescription medications, because they will be their control group, I would assume. You can enroll, and the screening can be done online, and there's no need for a personal visit. So if that's something that you want to be a part of, you can find more information about it by going to the Navio Lab, NAVIAUX lab at ucsd.edu. So, I'm sorry, I got verklempt.
Oh, that's okay.
Drowning. But anyway, so check that out if you want to be a part of that study, and that's happening in 2019. Should be really interesting. We've seen a lot of drugs in the last few years that had previous studies that are getting into those clinical trials where they might actually, be at the point where soon our kids can actually try them on the open market,
right,
which would be a fascinating thing. Okay. Next story, I thought this was a very interesting story, that there is a young man who's on the autism spectrum that had a lot of problems. You know how we always say that when kids find their thing, it's interesting because then the world looks at them in a different way, and they look at the world in a different way. So this young boy, Alfie Aldridge, had some behavior that was making it very difficult for him in school. He was labeled as somebody who had anger and aggression, and now he's discovered a love for modeling.
Yes, he's going to be modeling for H&M, River Island, and Land Rover.
And he's so excited about it, and his dad is supporting him in this, and he is thrilled about it and just loves to be in front of the camera.
Right, so he's found his niche.
Which, and so as a result of that, the world is looking at him in a different way. I always love what Elaine Hall says about, we have to stop looking at people in these very defined boxes. And she says of her son, because somebody asked her once in front of me, well, so is your son high functioning? Or, which, we all need to get away from those terms. And her response was just so brilliant. And she said, I don't subscribe to high functioning and low functioning. And she's like, I don't even know what that means, because it's all contextual. If you're in a classroom and you're doing trigonometry, then no, my son's not going to perform particularly well. But if you're on the side of the mountain and trying to figure out what to pack to be able to make it to the top of the mountain, my son will be the most proficient person on the side of that mountain.
Right.
She's like, so, it's and I go, oh, that makes great sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
So anyway, love it when people find their niche.
Yes.
Okay, and then very interesting story coming out of Australia. There's an election that's happening there in Victoria, and it's heated up a little bit around the topic of autism. And one of the candidates, Matthew Guy, is promising a quote-unquote revolution for autism support services. One of the things that he's saying, if his party is elected into power, which is the coalition, if they win the November election, that they will give a package of $50 million to autism support services that will include a 24-hour autism helpline and $4 million increase of early diagnosis services. And, that all sounds very interesting to me. And I had shared with you that recently in doing talks, the many talks that I do, one of the things that I try to explain to people is how difficult it is for a parent in the early days.
Yeah, because you don't know where to turn to.
And, so you sometimes you'll see on the news and they'll say early warning signs of autism, but when you finally get to the point, I know for me it was this way, where I was like, okay, I think something's going on, and a friend said, I think something's going on. So I went, okay, it's time to call somebody.
Right. Yeah, who do you call?
And I say to everybody, where are the billboards?
Right.
Why aren't there billboards on every major highway?
And then what billboard would it have? What number would it have to call?
And what phone number would it have to call? And how can we be in the United States and that is not a thing? Why is our government...
Usually it's the pediatrician that would do a referral to an assessment center.
But yes, that's in the perfect world, that's how it would be. How many people do you know that that's what happened?
And it happened to me far too late.
Well, okay. Way too late, outside of when you would have liked to have gotten services.
Right.
We had to, the pediatrician that we had at the time totally missed it. I made an appointment with a developmental pediatrician on my own, and it took me 3 days to find out that's who I needed to call and get an appointment with, was a developmental, 3 days. I'm, somebody who can research very quickly and not afraid to call people. And I always think, what's it like for a parent that English isn't their first language? Anyway, I love the idea of this 24-hour hotline that is sponsored by their government. I think that that's a particularly interesting thing.
And that a lot of the $50 million would go towards assessment of children going into secondary school.
Yes, and then there's a $500,000 fund that will provide resources and grants for local community support groups. I find that very interesting, and I think neat that this party has said this is a part of our platform,
Right.
and defined it so well, and that news picked it up.
Right.
News all the way, so that when I was searching news this week, it came up in my feed,
Right.
and I was like, that's pretty cool.
We can only hope for something like that to happen here.
Yes, there's an election coming up, and I hope that our politicians are listening.
Yes.
And paying attention. Okay, so we've got these two great guests.
Right. First, I think we're going to hear about autism and aging.
Yes,
and
and the brain.
The brain.
And how the
what
brain
happens,
ages.
right.
Yes, I'm excited to hear this.
So, Dr. Blair Braden.
Will be with us in just a few minutes. And then don't forget that later on, Dr. Christine Cohen is going to be with us with her book, Stand By Me. So stick with us.
My name is Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson. I'm the Executive Director of Act Today, and I'm here to support this amazing cause for military families with children with autism. Most military families move on average every 2 years. Oftentimes they have a parent who's deployed. With 1 in 68 military children being diagnosed with autism, it's just more critical than ever that we give them the support they need for care and services. This is the 8th year of our run. It's always a great event for the San Diego community, the fitness community, and the military community to come out and support military children with autism.
So nice to see so many people out here this morning, not only providing their support morally and emotionally for these families, but financially. And so they're raising a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars. It all goes to treatment and some of the things that these families may not otherwise be able to afford. And so we're just proud to be a part of it.
There's a children's race as well, and it's all kinds of fun too that's mixed up in it all.
This is our 8th year being the title sponsor of the One Hope Act Today Family 5K, 10K Family Festival. And we believe doing good is doing good business. The main thing that we're out here today is because of our Cabernet supports Act Today. And with our Cabernet, we donate back towards Act Today, and we've donated over 2,000 hours of ABA therapy.
Me and Gunny Gitmo came all the way out here from Palm Springs to support this because we do have a son that has autism. And so we come out here to do the support for it all the time. We do a lot of fundraisers out in Palm Springs also.
We had a huge Stroller Warriors group out here. I run with Stroller Warriors Miramar. We had a bunch of ladies run their first ever 10K today. It was amazing. I have a personal connection to autism. My son Ethan has autism.
I'm in the Navy, and I ran the inaugural Act Today 5K back in 2011, I think it was. And so every time I come back to San Diego, I try and make it around this time so I can come run this race.
I'm a 14-year military spouse who has been through 4 deployments with my husband. He's running today right now, so I'm just very happy to be here. Anytime an organization is out here helping military families, I'm always here to support because they're here to help families like me.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids, what are they talking about? But when a child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. But it didn't matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
And we are back, and now joining us is Dr. Blair Braden, who is an assistant professor of the Barrett Honors Faculty at the Department of Speech and Hearing Science at Arizona State University. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Braden.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes. And you are doing a study. You're leading a study, a 4-year study on aging and autism in adults. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we've been doing this work for a few years already, and we recently got funding from the National Institutes of Health to continue for 4 more years at least. But I hope to follow these adults for a very, very long time.
Very little is known about how aging will affect adults with ASD. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Leo Kanner gave, the kind of first diagnosis of autism in the 30s. And that's really not that long ago in the grand scheme of things in understanding health conditions. And it didn't even make it to the DSM until 1980. So we just don't have a good picture of what autism looks like in older adults and how aging may affect them differently. There's so many people out there who are probably on the spectrum but just haven't been identified.
Fascinating. This whole thing is fascinating to me. And in your studies, you have identified that men in general, middle-aged men, that their brains and the way they use their brain is a little bit different. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it's middle-aged men with autism compared to middle-aged neurotypical men. So one of the things that we really are concerned about is executive functioning. So we know that executive functioning can oftentimes be a difficulty for people on the spectrum, and we also know that executive functioning gets harder for everybody as we age. So we're worried that people on the spectrum may really see those difficulties to a greater magnitude. And that's what we found in our study when we looked at middle-aged men with autism compared to matched neurotypical men, so men with the same IQ, the same level of education, that our middle-aged men with autism struggled on executive functioning. And then when we looked at the brain, we saw a brain network that they weren't using when they were doing executive functioning. So we think that may be the root of the problem.
And do we have any idea why that exists?
Well, we also saw some structural differences in the brain, so some brain regions that were a little bit smaller and not as well connected to the rest of the brain. So we think it could be a brain communication breakdown, or that it's not happening as efficiently.
Okay.
And do you hope that by figuring this out that we can, what's the hope? This information is very exciting, but are you thinking there'll be something behaviorally that'll be a workaround, or what are you hoping will come of this?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So what we've done is we've identified some of the weaknesses, and now we are tailoring behavioral interventions to try to address that. And you nailed it about alternative strategies. What are some compensations we can do to help executive functioning? So for example, we see that long-term memory, it functions pretty well in our middle-aged adults with autism, very similarly to their neurotypical counterparts. So we're going to try to train up some habit strategies that can compensate for difficulties in flexibility and planning and those executive functions that are harder.
I just can't imagine. We get to meet a fair amount of individuals who are on the autism spectrum, but in terms of looking for middle-aged and older people on the spectrum, how tough has it been for you to be able to find these subjects?
It's been very tough. So we have a little over 30 in our study right now, and I've been out in the community trying to find these individuals for close to 4 years now. And we partner with the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center here in Phoenix, which is an amazing community center. So we've been able to find a lot of people through them, but a lot of people, as I've found, by just going to support groups and other community events. And now our new venture is to try to recruit middle-aged women with autism. And that, as you can imagine, is also very difficult because of the big sex difference in not as many women receive a diagnosis.
Absolutely.
And many of the participants in your study are being diagnosed for the first time?
That's true.
Okay.
And so when you say middle-aged, though, what years does that mean to you? What are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. We adjust the middle age window a bit when we're talking about adults on the spectrum because so little is known. So in neurotypical aging, we usually don't think of middle age until 50 or so. But for us, there was really this gap in what happens to anybody over the age of 40. So we start our middle age recruitment at 40 years of age, and then we accept people as old as we can find them. So we have a few in their 70s.
This is very exciting to me because I just turned 56 and I thought that made me senior citizen. But apparently I'm middle-aged.
Yeah, you're middle-aged.
I'm still cooking with gas. This is very exciting to me. Okay.
Also, something that struck you is the high rates of depression and anxiety. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so that was something we weren't looking for, we weren't expecting, but we collected data on because how people are feeling with mood and anxiety can affect how they perform on cognitive tasks. And what we found was that people endorsed really high rates of depression and anxiety. So that's the thing we moved on first. We just this summer finished a behavioral intervention to try to reduce stress and depression and anxiety in our adults with autism. And those results are hot off the press, and we found a really strong reduction in depression symptoms. So that's very exciting for us.
Amazing. So now, if people want more information and or they know somebody that would be ideal for this study or they themselves are ideal for this study, where do we need to send them so that you can put them into your group?
Absolutely. So I shared my website with your producers yesterday. Yep, there it is. That would be fantastic if anyone themselves wants to volunteer for our study or knows someone who may be a good candidate. There's a place to go on there to click a button about participating.
Okay.
You can also see our publications.
For those of you that are listening to the podcast on iTunes, it's asu.edu/Braden, BRADEN. ABA Lab, L-A-B as in boy. Really amazing. When people are a part of your study, what kinds of things can they expect to have to do? Is it mostly surveys or are there MRIs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do it all. We try to make it, pack in as much information as we can get without taking too much time from the person. But we get questionnaires, we do cognitive assessments, so pen and paper kind of tests and some kind of building tests. And then we do an MRI, so about an hour in the scanner, which sounds like a lot, but a lot of our scans are functional MRI. So you're actually looking at a computer screen, doing different thinking tasks and giving your answers on buttons. So it's kind of interactive and sort of video game-like. So people generally really enjoy participating in the study. We can give them direct feedback about their brain, that everything looks normal, which is mostly the case, but it's kind of nice to have that confirmation. And then we can also give them feedback about how they're doing cognitively, what areas they may be struggling more or less with. And then they are compensated $100 for their time because it takes about 4 or 5 hours out of people's time. And so we're really flexible too. We will do evenings and weekends, anything we can do to get these individuals.
Okay, but if somebody doesn't live in the Phoenix area but is willing to travel, what would they have to come once or twice, do you think?
So our participants come every 2 years. So as long as they would be willing to come every 2 years, we'd happily take out-of-state participants.
All right.
And what are you hoping is the ultimate outcome of the study and how it can be practically applied?
What we hope is to pretty definitively describe what things are going to get easier for adults on the spectrum as they get older and what things are going to get more challenging, and then to be able to develop meaningful interventions for those challenges. And we do the brain imaging for a couple of reasons. One, because there are advances in neuromodulation where we may actually be able to target brain circuits that aren't performing the way we would like, and that could improve people's independence. And then also it may be a way for us to see if our behavioral interventions are helping by an objective measure. If people start using the brain circuits they weren't using before, that's pretty powerful evidence that our interventions are working.
Right.
And lastly, we think it's really important for clinicians more broadly to understand what autism looks like in older adults. We really worry that gerontologists who are very unfamiliar with the condition may actually misdiagnose some older adults as possibly having a dementia that they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay.
There's a lot there. This is very exciting, and I hope that you'll come back and join us as you get results and things and have stuff to report on.
Yes, I would love to.
Okay, fabulous.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Exciting.
Yeah, I can imagine that there's just not, there's a dearth of information when it comes to older people on the spectrum. I mean, when we think about how it's just been in the last 10 years that this, awareness has come about.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. But in my head, as she was talking, I was going through, okay, who do I know that's over the age of 40 that is on the spectrum? I actually came up with a huge list of people. So I'm going to send an email out and try to connect them, because what a wonderful thing. And great for them to find out where they are and to get all of that. But how great for all of our kids coming up. It had never occurred to me that once we helped Jem with his executive function skills, that they would get worse later on.
Right.
And that we need, as parents, to plan for that and to be on top of that. That had not occurred to me before. Duh. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and then Dr. Christine Cohen is going to be joining us, talking about her program and book, Stand By Me. So stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing, and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Talk to us a little bit about what your degree is in.
City planning or urban planning.
I got it from Cal State Northridge with a degree in cinema and television arts with an emphasis in screenwriting.
And what are you interested in, Eli?
A video game internship.
Computer programming.
I'm hoping to combine entertainment or travel, my two passions.
Ooh. What kind of jobs have you worked?
Bakery inventory.
Okay, inventory.
Want to talk about your volunteer job?
I was going to help the soldiers.
You volunteered to help the soldiers?
Yes. I interned in the national parks in the Santa Monica Mountains, which is very urban area. So I worked with the problems of how it's impacting the surrounding community, like the flow of traffic and the flow of people and what they could do to plan in the parking.
I've been to China. I've been all around Europe. I've been to Thailand, Japan, Australia.
You can create an app? That's impressive. Really cool thing. Can you teach other people how to make an app? If you have a choice between working or not working,
Working.
you like working.
Yes.
Why? What do you like about working?
It is fun.
I would work
Yeah? You would choose work? Why?
because I have skill on that. Get paid and enjoy it, and want to make sure I have enough money so I can save it.
Why do you need to have a full-time job? I mean, it's kind of like a duh thing, right?
Oh, obviously, so I
Yeah.
can support myself
Right.
and hopefully a family down the line, but at least at first, myself.
I'm very dependable and always reliable and get to my job on time.
What excites you about working a job or being an intern?
Learning new skills.
Yeah. What has it meant to you having this job and having the stability of a job that you've had for multiple years?
It's meant the world because I'm able to do almost everything I wanted to do because of that job.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
And we are back, and as promised, we're here with Dr. Christine Cohen. Dr. Cohen is a licensed psychologist and specialist in school psychology. You provide contracted psychological services for public school districts through your company, the East Texas Educational Contracting. You have quite a background as a graduate of clinical psychology at the University of Texas, Southwestern Medical Center's graduate program of biomedical sciences, and you were an autism coordinator for 18 years. And now you've developed this groundbreaking program, Stand By Me. Tell us, in essence, what Stand By Me is about.
Well, it's a simple, effective, and easy-to-use anti-bullying program that teaches kids what to do when they see bullying happen.
Okay.
And basically, there are two very straightforward strategies that we teach kids. Number one is to step forward, and number two is to stand back. And that also is very simple. So if you can imagine a bullying incident where you have a bully berating a victim, you have a few kids watching, those kids are really uncomfortable. They don't like bullying, they're disturbed by it, but they really don't know what to do, and they're scared. You know, they're scared of being targeted, they're scared of being seen as tattlers, they're scared of getting in trouble. And so we teach them what to do. So stepping forward means that you go forward, you introduce yourself to the victim, and you remove the victim from that interaction. You don't confront the bully, you ignore the bully. The bully is not important for us in this program. All of our support goes to the victim. So what you find, I mean, behaviorally, if you remove that victim, the audience is going to go away. There's nothing to see, okay? And the bully is not reinforced for that behavior because they're not getting the attention. So we teach them to step forward. That's the basic interaction. If they're in a hallway, you know, they walk with them to the next class. If they're in the cafeteria, they invite them to join them at the table. If they're outside, they walk toward the nearest adult. The standing back happens when there's physical aggression because we're big on safety. We don't want kids to do anything they're uncomfortable doing. So if there's physical aggression, we teach them to stand back and alert an adult. And so then what we do is we have the kids take data on what they're doing. And that's one of the things that makes this program really unique. Most programs just give you anecdotal data. And Stand By Me gets 5th through 8th graders to take data. And it really is very simple, but what they do is that they keep track of what kind of intervention they made, whether they stepped forward or stood back, and what the location was. And those interventions are tallied over time. They're given to administrators, and then administrators can use that information to actually make decisions about staffing patterns within the building. So one of the things we found is that you take all those all the onlookers, which are a major resource. You know, they far outnumber any of the kids that are engaging in bullying or being victimized. But you activate those bystanders, and they want to help. So they will actively engage. And in the 4 years of the pilot program we have, our student members logged over 4,000 interventions.
Wow.
And to me, that's so impressive.
Yes.
And that's all the kids. That's not me. That's the kids.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that the school doesn't think of that as being impressive because that means there were 4,000 incidences in which something was happening. But the truth is, it's there. And whether we want to know that it's happening or not, it's happening. Our kids come and tell us that it's happening. And as a result of this, you're seeing, well, tell us, what do you see as a result of this stand back? It's step forward, stand back?
Standing back.
Step forward, standing back.
And taking the data. What do you see happen as a result of that? Do we see less bullying, or that the nature of it is less intense?
Well, that's where you run into issues with interpreting your data. And what we've tried to do with this is be very conservative. And you're exactly right that I have had administrators say to me, well, we don't want anybody to know about this because this looks like we have bullying all over the place. Yeah. Well, there's a huge majority of kids that get bullied, whether you report it or not. Yeah. And, you know, the issue is adults don't see it. Kids do. And the standard for disciplinary action and bullying in public schools is pretty high. So there's not a lot of interaction that's going to rise to that level. And right now, we put the onus all on teachers to deal with it. You know, report to a teacher. But what's the teacher going to do? You know, she hasn't seen it. She has no evidence. It's he said, she said. You know, there aren't really effective consequences. And so what happens is then the kids, you know, the victim has reported. There's no real consequence. You know, the victim is not being supported at all. Mm-hmm. And the bully's angry. So the victim's exposed and the teacher's not seen as an ally anymore. So we take the burden off the teacher by taking the bully out of the equation. Mm-hmm. We teach our kids not to report. We don't name names. That's the victim's prerogative. If they want to do that, they can. But what we do is we step in at the point where the bullying happens and we support that victim.
Love it.
Okay.
How does it support students with autism spectrum disorders?
Well, that's where my heart lies, you know, and that's where the program came from. Right. And what happens with those kids, and I'm sure you all have seen that as well, is that they struggle socially, and they're often victimized because they don't know what friendly approaches are.
Right.
Okay. And so they're isolated. They don't really have a peer group. So Stand By Me helps them in two ways. You know, Stand By Me creates a community of kids and we pull in everybody. We can talk about that in a minute about how it works, but we also pull in the bullies. But for kids with autism spectrum disorders, It does two things. Number one, from the time they walk in the building, you can pair them with a Stand By Me member. And that person can walk them to class, they can sit with them at lunch, they can hang out with them outside. And so they're not isolated anymore.
Yeah.
And so for parents who have kids with limited verbal skills and worry every day about what's happening to their child because that child can't report, administrators can say, look what we're doing. Look at these interventions. We are supporting all of our students in this building. The other thing it does is that there is a meeting process. You know, the whole program is supported by weekly meetings between the kids and a faculty sponsor. But during that process, once, you know, the kids, the ASD kids, they're immediately supported by members, but they also can join the group, okay, as full members. The strategies that we use are really simple, they're very concrete, they're easy to learn, and these kids can master them. They don't require a lot of judgment, they don't require a lot of subtlety. They're easy to master, and these kids can do it. And then in the weekly meeting, what happens is that there's a constant evaluation process of what's bullying. You know, is this teasing? Is it bullying? Does it make a difference? Because it hurts our feelings anyway. You know, this happened to me this week. You know, it's basically one social interaction after another. You analyze it, you talk about it, you come up with solutions for it within the context of your peer group. So it's an ongoing social skills program.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Because, you know, in education, it should always be about educating, and a lot of times we make this assumption that people know the right thing to do. But we've given a mixed message to our kids in the classroom, because sometimes when a kid intervenes and they intervene in the wrong way and they get caught up in it, then they get punished along with everything. So a lot of times parents have said, stay out of it.
Right.
It's not your problem, stay out of it. Don't you get involved, but that leaves the bully to bully and the victim to be left on their own. What I love is when we take kids, we have kids who we know are driven by attention and they want to and praise, and when we give them an opportunity and give them skills, then they step up. So, and then it creates a network around our kids with ASD. So I think this is brilliant, but, and I think your teachers probably love it too.
They do.
I'm sure.
They do.
But how does this get into the classroom? What's the path? If a parent is watching this and they go, oh, why don't we have this at my child's school? What path would you tell them to get the book themselves and read the book and then go and try to start the program? What's the easiest way to get this into the school?
Well, parents are critical, and this really does pull parents into the process. You know, we've done the pilot program, the book is out now, and we are trying to get the word out and trying to get it in public schools. Parents can take this information to their school boards, they can make presentation to their school boards, they can talk to the campus principals, and I think they can be part of the implementation process. I don't know if you want to talk about kind of how that works on a campus.
Sure.
But basically, what we do, we try to recruit everybody into this program. You get the word out, you have a contest for a badge design that all the members wear. You announce it in all the classrooms, you have an assembly, however you can do it. And then there's an application process that they go through. And we do the application not because we want to exclude kids, but we want kids that have a commitment, that are willing to put the work in order to be a part of the program. But it doesn't require academic prowess. It doesn't require athletic prowess. You don't have to have any special talents except for a desire to help other people. This is how we get the bullies in there. Because they're often kids with leadership skills that don't have a way to express it. So we pull them in, and then we require that the kids stay discipline-free in order to be a part of the program. So when we get all the kids in, we get the application process done, there's an interview, just like you all are doing with me. And so when you get 5th through 8th graders that have never done this, you know, this is a formal interview. You have adults on the other side of the table. You have the kid in there, and this is kind of where our training begins, because they are very supportive of the kids during the process, but the kids are kind of anxious about it, and they have to answer a lot of questions about their own background, whether they've bullied other kids, why they want to be in the program. They have to get a recommendation from an adult. And so they're supported through that interview in saying things, speaking up, you know, speaking clearly, speaking their minds, And so they get used to doing things that are difficult. That's the beginning, an introduction to it. And so then when that's over with, there are two different kinds of acceptances. If you have a clean disciplinary history, that's one kind of acceptance, and you're fine, you're good to go, you get your badge and you go do your training. If you have any kind of disciplinary referrals, you have to be discipline-free for 6 weeks. So what we say is, we want you in this program. We think you can do it. This is the only thing that's keeping you from getting your badge. We want you to come to meetings. We want you to participate. We want you to experience this. And so what we do is we give all of the faculty high-five cards. And the kids have an opportunity to do community service for anybody in the building in exchange for a high-five card. And that's 1 day off of their 6 weeks period. So we support them in staying discipline-free. And so the parents can be a part of all of this application process. It's easy to train. You can train kids in less than an hour to do this. You can train your faculty in 30 minutes in a staff meeting. You can train your faculty sponsors in 2 hours. And so it's affordable, for the cost of the book. It's sustainable for staff turnover because you can retrain your own faculty. It gives you data, which is a requirement in public schools. But parents can be involved in supporting that faculty sponsor. They can go to meetings, they can help with data. We have a website where the campus groups can blog post. Kids are not allowed to post, but faculty sponsors post. Parents can help in that process, and kids have reading privileges.
Love it.
So they can help, and then the faculty sponsors can post, the parents can help with that. The other thing this does, again, is this gives parents information about what the school is doing and actively involves them. So, if kids come up with solutions for bullying problems that they see in the building, and they do that all the time, if adults don't try to step in and tell them what to do, they do great. We just shut them down. If we start giving them our ideas, they just don't want it. And so parents can be a part of nurturing that process. But it gives parents confidence that their kids are engaged, that their kids are supported, that the school is serious about, meeting that obligation to have anti-bullying programming.
Which is so important. So you have a website, and Samantha's going to put it up on the screen right now, standbymeforschools.com. The book is Stand By Me. It's empowering bystanders to end bullying in schools. I think this is absolutely remarkable. And where can they get the book? Can they get the book on your website?
Yes, the publishing company AAPC is the company that did produce the book, and so you can get it on the AAP website. That's also a great resource for any information about kids with autism spectrum disorders. You can get it on Amazon. And I think there's a link on my There's a link on my website.
And the book is all they need to start the program.
That's it.
It's got all your forms and everything in the book.
Yes,
so that you don't have to create anything.
You don't have to create anything. And if you go to my website, I actually have a forms link. So there's a thank you page. If you put your information in the thank you page, it sends you a code to download forms from the website. So you need to have to photocopy the book.
Great.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this
great
program
Thank
and for
you.
being here with
So
us.
needed.
Absolutely. Everybody spread the word, because
Thank
wouldn't
you.
that be an amazing thing if we could start having a lot less bullying on the school campuses? It'd be
That
good
was the
for
result
everybody.
of the students themselves.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
it. It's all the
Right.
kids.
It's the kids,
Amazing.
and that's where it should be.
Yeah.
All right, so check it out, get the book, get this started, spread the word. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back to finish out the show. Stick with us.
Got bruises, aggression, and how to handle it. Got bruises? Of course you do. And if you don't, you may sometime in the future. I remember I used to be covered in bruises. My son's tiny little sharp teeth would inflict all kinds of blue marks all over my arms, and people would say, "Does your husband beat you?" Aggression in autism is connected to what I call the 3 H's: health, habit, and help me. So what do I mean by that? Health is really an underlying issue in autism. There are more studies that show that autism is linked to a dysfunctional immune system. And when you tackle that with medical treatment, special diets, things like that, aggression can improve greatly. In your area, there are different doctors that are going to specialize in autism. Mainstream pediatricians, mainstream doctors aren't really that much of help. Habit is very, very ingrained in people with autism. We know this. Sometimes that's a strength, sometimes it's a weakness. So when people with autism are getting that negative attention, getting the excitement from being aggressive against someone, it's hard to break that. This is when you should get some professional advice in. Perhaps your ABA provider or someone else can help you break that cycle and redirect so that they don't keep finding aggression so much fun. Third of all, help me. Aggression is actually an attempt to communicate for some people with autism, especially those who have a hard time with verbal language. So that's when it's really important to get that extra step to get them a means of communication, be it an iPad, be it perhaps a letter board if you're in a low technology country where you can't access a lot of things. It's very important so that they can at least communicate their basic needs. They might be in pain. Someone might be unfortunately abusing them. That does happen. So take it seriously. Aggression isn't just aggression. There's usually an underlying cause. Now, I would caution you because autism and stubborn do tend to go together. It's important to not let your child get too much control of things, too much control of the family, because when they get too willful, that leads to some really long-term problems. Get your parenting in order and tend to that aggression before it turns out to be too much for you. You may have bruises now, but it won't last forever. When I talk to my son now, he looks back and he says, "I can't believe I did that to you, Mom. I'm really sorry." I'm like, "Well, just let me have a few French fries off your plate and we're going to call it even."
Welcome back. And we decided to keep Dr. Cohen with us because I had more questions during the break. And one of my questions was, is it just 5 through 8?
Right. Yeah. What grades?
And no, that's not true. I was telling them during the break that it started at that grade level because that was the principal that took a chance on me and took a chance on the program. And so what we did, we started at 7th and 8th grades, and then we expanded it down to 5th and 6th grades. This program is easily expandable up to high school, and it's easily expandable to the lower grades.
Okay.
But we don't have the pilot data on that.
Okay.
I feel sure that it would work just as well and just as easily. But that's why we have that grade, the grade range that we have on it. So.
I love what the back of your book says, and I'm just going to read this. Bystanders. The majority of children are neither victims nor bullies, but bystanders. They fuel the bully through the validation of their presence. They are the audience conferring power on the actor. Most children are disturbed by what they see, but afraid of the consequence of action. That inaction itself has consequences and the feelings of powerlessness that ensue. If they only knew what to do, how to intervene, they could make a profound difference.
Well, there's an entire, in psychology, they talk about the Kitty Genovese effect, about, that the famous
Power
case
of the crowd, right.
of, if somebody is yelling for help and no one reacts, and there's multiple, many studies about this and about what to do and what not to do. But when we're talking about school age things, I do think that there is this powerlessness that everybody feels like, well, this has just been going on forever. And as I had said before, I have run into people who say, well, kids will be kids, which I think is the most destructive thing. It's a way of saying, well, we're going to allow it.
Yeah.
I went through it. I was bullied, so everybody's going to have to go through it.
It's a fact of life, yeah.
Yeah, it's unacceptable way of looking at things.
I agree.
We don't see this in the animal kingdom. This is not something that has to be. It's a very weird thing for me. Anyway, we're thrilled that
you came all the way from Texas.
Oh, thank you.
This is a terrific program.
Yes, and so definitely make sure that you're checking it out. I always say that at this time of the year, now that everybody's settled in at school, that it's a great time to gift your teacher something. Now, sometimes it's that they need crayons. Sometimes they need tissues because it's going to be a long winter and everybody's, going to need, right? And I would say, but you know, I do think that teachers notice when you gift them something. What a great gift to give this to your principal, right? Just give this to your principal. That's what I'm going to do this week.
Okay.
Anyway, so a wonderful thing. And again, we can get this book. We can go to AAPC Publishing, which is aapcpublishing.net, and you can get the book, but it's also available on Amazon.
Yeah.